Joining me now is Mandela Barnes. He is the Lieutenant Governor of Wisconsin and has been since 2019 as a former state representative and Milwaukee local. Lieutenant Governor Barnes has been involved with Wisconsin politics for much of his career. Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for joining me. How are you this morning?
Hey, my man, I'm doing real good. It's good to see you again. Haven't seen you since 2017. So it's good to have a chance to speak with you.
It is our pleasure, man. And since then, you have been consistently and persistently working in politics there in Wisconsin. And first and foremost, congratulations on achieving the office of Lieutenant Governor. That's no small feat. And we want to salute you for that. But in your time as Lieutenant Governor, you have had to navigate this pandemic. And as well as the politics around voter suppression. None of that has stopped simply because of the pandemic. Tell us the status of your state with regards to the pandemic, as well as the same voter suppression efforts that we've seen spreading across the state of Georgia.
To be honest, man, it's gotten a lot worse. I think about the pandemic and how it's primarily, or I guess I should say disproportionately impacted communities of color, brown and black communities who bore the brunt of this virus, our Native American communities as well. And so these issues that we've had before, as far as health inequity, have existed for a long time, but the pandemic just sort of exposed it to a lot of people. And it's still unfortunate because a lot of the people who saw this to be new still chose not to respond. And then with voter suppression, people had to be able to safely cast a ballot. And that meant more mail-in voting than normal here in the state of Wisconsin. And now they want to try to restrict mail-in voting. So it's like the pandemic showed a lot of flaws and inequities that we had as far as healthcare and democracy itself. And instead of trying to fix those problems, making life a little bit easier for people in this state, our Republican-controlled legislature, who has that majority by way of gerrymandering, decides that they want to still continue to try to make life harder for people. I mean, it's a shame. And we're talking about people who are losing their lives and people who stand to potentially lose their rights. And we have to fight back against this as much as we possibly can. This is a fight we cannot give up because there is no alternative.
Right. You tweeted something the other day that I want to bring up on the screen here. You said before the pandemic, income inequality in Wisconsin was at its highest point since the Great Depression. COVID-19 did not make things better. The American Rescue Plan is an all-important first step. But next, we need big structural change. Tell me about that big structural change that you feel like we obviously need.
Yeah, absolutely. So here in Wisconsin, that was based on a either 2017 or 2018 report. But obviously between 2018 and 2019, things didn't change that drastically as far as income inequality in our state. But with the pandemic, that has made things much worse. Billionaire wealth has increased to over $1.5 trillion, or increased over $1.5 trillion over the course of this pandemic, while families are struggling. People are out of work. People are in debt. You talked about just before I came on about people being overdrafted in the thousands. This is the reality for so many people, while at the same time, we have billionaires and multimillionaires who continue to increase their worth. So we have to take bold action, man, to reduce the disparities. And I see in Washington State, they just passed the capital gains tax. They tried multiple legislative sessions to get that done. Senator Warren and her wealth tax bill is an important first step to shift the balance, man. If we don't get money in the pockets of hardworking people, or unfortunately now people who are out of work, this economy is going to go to hell in a handbag real quick. And I don't think people understand how pervasive, and I don't think people understand what happens when inequality grows at this rate, when people cannot afford basic necessities and people cannot afford to live, while at the same time, you got people who have money that they will never, ever spend. Greed is going to be the demise of this entire society. And we have to stop it right now, man. We can't let Amazon take over the entire world while people are still struggling to put food on the table.
Yeah, no, you're hitting on the exact things that we talk about, right? The fact that you said it, greed will be the downfall of our entire society and yet our entire civilization. I wonder then, as you have matriculated up into these spaces of power in your state, there seems to be a veil where people go into office and it's like we almost lose track of them, or they get sucked into the abyss of power. or to the black hole of just nothingness, and we don't get any results. I wonder, as a person who's now on the inside of your state system at the highest level, what happens? I mean, I know we have the lobbyists. I know we have the opposition party. And I know we have people who actually think greed is good. But what happens to our troops when we send them there and we put them in power, and it seems as though like they become all of a sudden outside of power, they had all the stuff to say that was right, but inside of power, it seems like that power diminishes, or that fight against greed and individualism diminishes. From your perspective, what happens when you come from the outside to the inside?
Man, that's what happens when you elect people without a mission. And, you know, I showed up, and I even when I was a state rep, and to this point now, I don't think there's a difference in my approach to things. And I ran for state representative because I was an organizer with an interfaith group. And our issues were jobs and economic development, education, immigration reform, and treatment instead of prison. I knew what I was going there to do. And you got so many people who run for office who are making it up as they go, people who've run for multiple offices at the same time, being a completely different candidate for each office they've ever run for. And you got people who just want to show up for the vanity of it all, people who've like maybe amassed an amount of wealth and figure that this is the next logical step in their career, but show up and have no idea what's actually going on, man. I am still talking about the same exact things I've been talking about 10 years ago. I am still friends with the same people I was friends with 10 years ago, and I'm still in the same fights with the people I was with 10 years ago. Being in this position, I'm proud that we have pushed and moved on those issues that I've been talking about since 10 years ago, like the fact that, you know, our state was one of the ones that spent more in general purpose revenue on the Department of Corrections and the UW system. And this budget that the governor just put out finally shifts that paradigm. And we are at the end of the biennium going to be investing more in our UW system because we have to prioritize education over incarceration if we ever want to get this thing right. We are leading with equity. We have racial equity plans in this state right now, internally within state government, as far as hiring practices in terms of every office. My office had to do a racial justice training. I even had to do it myself. And that is because we have to lead by example. Wisconsin has some of the worst disparities along racial lines, and we have to be committed to fixing that. And so I'm proud of the work that we've been able to do, because I didn't just figure this stuff out in the middle of a campaign just to get some applause at a debate or a rally. I talked about the things that I was actually working on and saw elected office as a continuation of that work.
I want to share one more tweet. This one is from a reporter, Gabby Bachara, and she's actually quoting you, where you said the following. You said, quote, "We have an opportunity to get something done." And then she gave context. "Starting now, the Wisconsin Six will fast for 22 days to spark action for climate change. The hope is to keep climate justice in Governor Evers' budget and expand on it." Tell me about that Wisconsin Six and the 22-day fast for climate change action.
Tell you, man, anytime somebody says we're going to bring up a tweet, get a little bit nervous. Sometimes I get the call from the governor's office. So about this tweet.
Yeah.
So that was about a group from Kenosha. Actually, Justin Blake, who's the uncle of Jacob Blake, who was shot by police, is one of the members. And he called me up one day. He said, you know, this doesn't stop. We still have so many issues we have to continue to work on. We support what you're doing. I chaired the governor's task force on climate change. We brought together 32 people from across the state, different professions, and we released the most ambitious climate change action plan the state has ever seen. It was 55 recommendations that span 9 different sectors: the economy, the environment, obviously, agriculture, education, and a number of other issues for bold climate action. And they are marching and they are fasting in support of their own climate policies. But many of them are climate related policies that will be, or that are currently in the governor's budget, just trying to bring attention to the issue. It's that inside outside strategy. You talk about people going away. And I've always seen being elected office is us making sure that we are tethered, that we still have that inside outside strategy, because with our legislature, it's very difficult to get important things done. But we have people organizing on the outside, building public consensus, shifting public opinion, that is how we move policy. That is how we move an agenda.
One last thing that I kind of want to talk to you about. Ron Johnson, the Republican senator from Wisconsin, is hinting that he may not run for re-election. I have been following your work for some time. And that Senate seat is opening up in 2022, right around the corner. We're in this cycle. He made a vow to only serve 2 terms in the Senate, and so it looks like he may not run. Are you going to run?
So what I will say is that whatever Ron Johnson does won't dictate my decision. A number of people have talked to me about it, brought this to me, and it's something I've honestly thought about. But we do have a whole lot of work that I was talking about earlier. I want to see this budget get passed. I want to see some of the higher priority items get a chance to be talked about in a way that they won't be talked about. I was elected to do a job. I need to do this job first because that's the important thing to do. And if I do decide to run, I need to. I want a potential candidacy to be, determined on the work that I had with the chance that I was given. So I don't have a final decision on that, but it's something that I'm certainly considered, and I'm very grateful for the amount of people who've reached out about it, because this is something that we have to get right. And not just any candidate is going to win that race. We need to lead with a bold vision, and people have to have proven themselves if they want to be able to get the support of the public.
Yeah. Oh, man. That kind of response is the kind of response you get from a seasoned politician who's ready to run. So listen, tell everybody how they can get up with you and how they can support you and what you're doing, and where they can find more about you.
Yeah, man. I guess Twitter is the easiest. The other Mandela, and that's the easiest way to find me, and that's how we've stayed in touch. So if people want to follow along and see what happens next, the other Mandela is the way to find me.
Hey, brother, it's always a pleasure. Glad to reconnect with you, and hoping to support you as you continue to fight for the same things today that I saw you fighting for when I first met you. So thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Hey, you too, man. I hope you do this again.
Absolutely.